Hi again, everybody. It's me again, back with a short video, this time on Latin verbs. There's a good section in Wheelock on verbs, but verbs are complicated little words, and so I thought I would chime in with my own 2 cents and try to help make them clearer to you insofar as how a Latin verb works and what to look for when you're trying to figure out what one means. So let's get started here. A Latin verb is made up of 3 parts. The stem, a tense and mood vowel or syllable, and then finally personal endings. The stem gives the basic meaning of the verb. It doesn't provide any action. It doesn't tell you who's doing the action. It doesn't tell you whether someone is doing the action or receiving the action. It just gives the basic idea of what the action is. In this case, I've chosen the verb laudo, so that loud is the base, and all it means is praise, but it doesn't mean anything more. The second part of the verb is this tense and mood signifier. I'll talk about mood in a little bit. It doesn't mean grouchy or grumpy or something like that, but it has to do with the way that the action's conceived of in the mind of the speaker. For now, we'll concentrate on tense, which is when a verb takes place in time. Depending on what the vowel is or the syllable is, this tells somebody who's listening to somebody speak in Latin when the verb occurs. So that laudamus means we praise. And if you change the middle part here from a to abi, like laudabimus, this will put it into the future. If you change the middle part to laudabamus, it will put it into the past in what is called the imperfect tense. The third part of the verb is the personal ending. And by personal endings, I mean it tells you who is the subject of the verb. But there are verbal endings for active personal endings, that is where the subject does the verb to something else, and passive endings where the verbal action happens to the subject. So for example, we're only going to learn active endings for the first part of this course, but I've put some passive ones in to illustrate how the verbs work. So laudamus means we praise. Laudabimus, mus is the same, loud is the same, it's just abi in the middle that's different. Throws it into the future. We will praise. However, down here at the bottom, you can see lauda, just like above here in the present tense. But instead of mus, there's mur. And mur is a passive ending. So laudamus means we praise, as in we praise something else. But laudamur would mean we are praised, as in we are praised by something else. What this illustrates, or I hope it helps you to see, is that you have to keep an eye on all 3 of these elements in order to understand what the Latin verb is actually saying. But once you understand what to look for, understanding the Latin verbs becomes a lot easier. Now, the way that these endings change the way that the verb is inflected. That is how it determines its meaning by changing its endings. And so I thought I would go over some of the elements of verbs, because you'll be using these terms and being asked to understand what they mean. And it's not always clear what they are if you've never heard them before. The first parts of the elements of a verb are a person and a number. And the person is an explanation. It identifies who is doing the verb from the point of view of the speaker. So first person is when I do something. So like I praise, I see, I go. But of course I am singular. I'm the only thing here at the moment. But if I were speaking for a group of people, I would have to use first person plural. And that's we. So we see and we go. In the mind of the speaker, if I'm if I'm putting the subject of the verb into the person I'm talking to, that becomes second person. The second person added to this possibilities of verbal action. And that becomes you or you all in terms of plural, or yous, I suppose, if you're over in Boston. But finally, we'll come to third person, where there is a not me, even not you, but there's somebody else doing the verb. And if that thing is singular, it's either he, she, or it. And if it is plural, then it is they, or they are they, something like that. So the first two elements, person and number. And there are three persons and two numbers. Now, the third element of a verb has to do with tense. And tense has to do with when the verb takes place in time, again, from the point of view of the speaker. So in Latin, there are 6 tenses. Some languages have less, some languages have more. There's present tense, that is, a verb is occurring in the speaker's present, as in I see or I am seeing. Future is I will see or shall see. Imperfect is a past tense, but it's a past tense that focuses on ongoing action in the past. It means things like I was seeing, or I used to see, or I kept on seeing in the past. Perfect tense is either represents what we in English call a simple past, like I saw, or a perfect tense that emphasizes the completion of an action, like I have seen. Oftentimes, perfect tense has an emphasis actually on the present, as in I have seen the light, meaning that I have woke and now I'm in a state of enlightened wokeness. Now, pluperfect is a remote past, and it's when we use to talk about something that occurred before something else in the past. So I can say I had seen. That sets it even more remotely. And we also have a future perfect, which emphasizes actions that will have been completed in the future, such as I will have seen, as in I will have seen the Washington Monument before I go and see the White House. All right, so that's person, number, tense. Finally, we have voice. Voice, as we we're saying in the first slide, is either active, where the subject is doing the verb, or passive, in which the subject is the recipient of the action. And so I've put some examples here with see, so you could see the difference between them. In present tense, I see is active, and I am seen is passive. In perfect tense, I have seen is active, as in I have seen Boston, and passive would be I have been seen, as I have been seen by many people walking around Boston. So in one, I'm the one that's doing the action, and in the other one, I'm the one that is receiving the action, but I'm still the subject of the verb. Anyway, we'll move through these tenses as we go through the chapters, starting with present, future, and imperfect, and ending up in the perfect tenses in chapter 12. Finally, and this is probably the hardest concept to wrap one's mind around, is that verbs also have an element that is called mood. And mood is the way that the action is conceived of in the mind of the speaker, because not all actions have the same quality. If I am stating an action as if it is a fact, and that doesn't mean I have to believe it's a fact. It doesn't mean it has to be true. It just has to be stated as if it were a fact. That is what is indicative. It indicates something. So I can say I run, I see, I go, I had gone. All of those are in indicative mood. However, if I attempt to command somebody to do something, that's not the same quality of action. I'm not stating a fact. I'm expressing a kind of wish with something that is hopefully to be, but is not yet. So if I say I run, like I run every Tuesday, that I'm stating in something that as if it's in fact in the indicative. If I was to look around and yell, run, then I would be commanding people to do something that had not happened yet. And that would be an imperative. It might be imperative for everyone to run at that present time. But it's an imperative mood. The third mood that we're going to learn, and we're not going to learn subjunctive until 112, so I hope you stick around so you can say something conditionally, is the third mood that we're going to be dealing with right away is infinitive. Now, in some ways, infinitive isn't a mood, but just bear with me. The infinitive mood of a verb lacks a person and a number. So it occurs in different circumstances where we want to use verbs as nouns, as in to fly would be wonderful, or maybe to eat a donut right now would be wonderful. Where the to eat and to fly are verbs, but there isn't anyone doing them. They're just the expression of the verbal action. Also, infinitives are used to do things like complete other verbs, as in I want. And the logical question is, you want to what? Well, you want an infinitive. So, I want to eat a donut. I don't know why I'm on donuts right now, but that sounds like a lovely thing to do. Anyway, to have the to blank form of the verb is the infinitive mood. Infinitives come, of course, in both active and passive. You can say to help and to be helped. So the only things that infinitives lack are a person and a number. Now, you'll be asked every once in a while to parse a verb. And to parse a verb means to identify those 5 elements, what they are. So I've placed a bit in a grid here, and so with laudo in Latin, it's first person. It has a first person personal ending, and it is singular because it's only I. Its tense is in the present, its voice is active, and its mood is indicative. That's different than if we go down to the last, where laudate is a second person plural verb, y'all. It's present and it's active, but it's not indicative, it's imperative, it's commanding more than one you to praise something or other. So I hope that you'll be able to review either the PowerPoint or this video as you go through and think about the elements of verbs. But if you keep in mind that the Latin verb is made up of these 3 parts, and that you can tell what the verb is doing by what the parts are doing, I think you'll get along a lot better. All right, thanks a lot. See you again.